Hey everybody, and welcome to Kensington Online. My name is Patrick, and we're so glad that you've decided to join us today. If it's your first time, I want to say a big welcome to you and let you know that we're going to be together today for a little bit over an hour. During that hour, you're going to hear some amazing music, a helpful message, and you're even going to have the opportunity to comment below and connect with the service host right here online. So we would love for you to do that. We're going to be sharing some of the main points from the message. You're going to get links to the songs and even some ways that you can reach out and connect with us if you'd like to do that. One of the ways that you can do that is actually going to thehubtc.com. That's thehubtc.com. If you can fill out that form, what will happen is one of our staff members will connect with you and answer any questions that you have about your experience today or even about our church. Also, want to invite you to follow us on social media if you're not currently doing that. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and those are really the best ways to find out more about who we are and all that's going on around here, and even be able to see a behind-the-scenes glimpse at how it all happened. So we would love to connect with you on one of those social media networks. Well, I think we're about to get started. Again, we're so excited that you decided to join us today, and we'll see you right back here in just a few minutes.
Well, hey, good morning. Welcome to Kensington. My name is Betty. I serve on the teaching team here at Kensington. We're so glad that you're with us and that you chose to spend your weekend with us here this week as we land the plane in our series called The Backwards Way. And if you are new or visiting with us for the first time, we're so glad that you're here. And we have a special environment created for you, just in mind for you. It's in the lobby called The Hub. There's 3 big TVs, and it's a space for you to ask questions or get to know more about who we are as a church, and we would love to meet you. But if you're visiting with us online or visiting a table in the lobby isn't quite your speed, we also have an online environment called thehubtc.com. You can log in there, ask any questions you have about our church, and we will get back with you as soon as we can. Now, with all that said, with all the holiday parties that we've been having, I encourage you to stand up, greet the person next to you, and ask them this question. Eggnog fan, yes or no? Merry Christmas.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick, and I just wanted to say thanks again for watching our service today online and being a part of this community. Now, we know that you might have some questions as you watch the service today and want to find out a little bit more information about who we are. And so we've created an environment for you to do just that. Simply go to startingpoint.today. That's startingpoint.today and fill out that short form, and one of our staff members will reach out to you very shortly and answer any questions that you have about our church and about who we are. Again, thanks so much for watching. We'll be back at the end of the service today to give you a little bit more information, but we'll see you here in just a few minutes.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming this morning. We're so glad you're here. We got Ryan, we got Annie, I'm Ben. You guys know these songs. Stay on your feet and sing with us. I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whisper of love in the dead of night, and you tell me that you're pleased and that I'm never alone. You're a good, good father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I love It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers. Only you provide, 'cause you know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. 'Cause you're perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Love so undeniable, I can hardly speak, and peace so unexplainable, I can hardly think as you call me, deeper still as you call me, deeper still as you call me, deeper still into love. Love, love, you're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. 'Cause you're perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You're good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am.
You were the Word at the beginning, one with God the Lord Most High. Your hidden glory in creation What a beautiful name it is. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a beautiful name it is. And nothing compares to this. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus. He didn't want heaven without us. So Jesus, you brought heaven down. The sin was great, your love was greater. And what could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is. And nothing compares to this. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. Death could now hold you. The veil tore before you. You silenced the boast of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring the praise of your glory. For you are raised to life again. For you have no rival, you have no equal. thank you so much for joining with us this morning. Go ahead and have a seat and put your eyes on the side screen for a short video.
Did you know that for centuries, Christmas was not celebrated as a single day, but as an entire season starting on December 24th, Christmas Eve? This season, Kensington Church would like to invite you to one of 3 identical Christmas services where we have designed every bit of it with your entire family in mind. Join us this holiday season, and together, let's discover the life-changing truth found in the Christmas story. We can't wait to see you there.
How are we feeling this morning, everybody? Doing good? Yeah? How many of you have not bought any Christmas presents like me yet? Anybody out there? How many of you, hey, let's pull up the house lights just for a second. How many of you have already got everything done? Go ahead and we're judging you. Don't do that. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No, hey, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Christmas is right around the corner. We're super excited about it around here. Christmas is a big deal here because it's funny. Christmas and Easter, we have more people that come through our church than any other time of the year, which is kind of interesting. And so we're super excited about it. And I know you and your family have a lot of plans, but we would love for you to spend part of your Christmas with us. And so to give you a quick heads up, we've got 4 different services over a 2-day period that we would love for you to join us at. So next Sunday, right, the 23rd, we've got our regular 9 and 11 o'clock services. Those will be identical. Those will be the same services, same time, 9/11 right here. We'll have full programming for kids as well. And then Monday the 24th, we have an identical service at 4 p.m., right? We'd love for you to join us for that one. So those 3 services are all the same. So they're big, exciting, fun. In fact, everything behind these curtains, right, we've done a whole new stage design. It's a lot of lights. Think Trans-Siberian Orchestra, U2, and Billy Ray Cyrus. Just kidding. So, just kidding. Wow, and you guys are like, I'm never coming. So anyway, but no, it's going to be so much fun. We would love for you to join us for one of those services. And then I'm super excited. We did this last year, we kind of as an experiment. But we thought, would anybody come to an 11 p.m. service? It's a little bit more scaled back as well. And a lot of you are volunteering at one of those services, and or many of those services actually. And so we have a special render service. How many of you have been to render before? Anybody been to render? Okay, great. So you know what this is. Yeah, render's so much fun. We love it. And so render. So that night, the 24th, like Christmas Eve night, 11 p.m. right here. It'll be across the hall. We'll take communion together. We'll do candle lighting at all those services, so it's going to be fun, but we would love for you and your family to join us. Now, with all that said, though, I need you to help me. Can you help me with something? So if you would, just trust me. I'm not going to ask you anything crazy. Go ahead and pull out your cell phones just for a second. Everybody pull out your smartphone, and here's what I'm going to ask you to do, right? This helps us more than you will ever know. We are asking, if you would, just to RSVP and let us know that you're coming, and to tell you how simple this is, right? We made a little video. So check this out. This is me this morning, and now I didn't know my iPhone would even do this, but I was excited that it did. So you go to kensingtonchurch.org/Christmas, right? This is how fast it is. kensingtonchurch.org/Christmas. You go right here. This is a page it'll come to. Say get tickets. That's a fancy way of saying RSVP. Get your tickets. All we ask you to do is put in your name, your number, your social security number, your bank account information, and all of your kids. I'm kidding. You don't have to put any of that in. Just give us your name, first and last name, email, because it'll email you out just a confirmation. And then all you do is tell us the number of people that are coming and reserve, and you're done. And I know this sounds weird. For you, it's about 25 seconds. For us, it's about 8 hours worth of work. So if you could help us out, that would help us a ton. And the reason that we do that, just so you know, is we have so many people who come in and out of these doors for Christmas. It just helps us make sure that we're ready for you and your friends and your family and all your weird uncles that are coming into town, right? So we'd love for you to do that if you could help us out. So make sure to mark down one of those times. We're super excited about it. It's going to be a great service. I want to go ahead and invite our ushers to move forward. We're going to receive our offering this morning. I want to say thank you so much to all of you who partner with us and give. I think I say thank you a lot. I don't know that I always just tell you this, and you may not know this. Our church is extraordinarily generous, right? So many of you give, and you give sacrificially. A few weeks ago, we talked about giving, and I was super excited. So many of you even you took a deeper step and an even bigger step towards giving. But when you give here, if you're new or if you haven't been to church in a while, if you haven't been to this church, we're not giving just to put on a service, right? We're actually giving back to our community. We're giving globally. In fact, we're able to reach a little over 500,000 people all over the world between all of our campuses. But today, you're going to hear even more about what we do locally, which I love. I love, I love. And so I want to say thank you so much for being so generous. And if you've never given here before, there's a few ways that you can do it. Honestly, online is probably the easiest way. You can give right on the Kensington Church app, and or you can give cash or check in the offering as it comes by, or you can go and just text message Kensington Christmas 77977. That's the number to do it to, and you can always give in one of those ways. The other thing I was going to tell you about is today we are wrapping up our series It's called The Backwards Way, and I've been super excited about this series. I love it. If it's your first time, the way that we do Sundays is a little bit different. It's kind of like a Netflix TV show, right? So for us, we have different episodes along the way. So we're in the very last episode of this series, and what we're talking about today is going to be a lot of fun. I'm super passionate about it. But more than that, you're going to get to see some funny things, especially at the beginning. So to get us thinking about this service and what we're going to be talking about in the message, let's watch this video together. All right, so to get us just kind of all on the same page and united on one front, right? So anybody who is like 25 years and older in the room, just for a hot second, can we just all be honest about one thing? So get your hand ready. I'm going to ask you to raise it. And you're in church, so don't lie, right? But here's the question, right? How many of you have a picture or set of pictures from your early 20s or the college days that you would never want anybody to see? Raise your hand real quick. Raise it high. Be proud. Yes, and then how many of you, you're in your 20s right now, and you're like, I took a picture recently that I don't want anybody to see. Anybody? Yeah, just kidding. All right, so I'm going to tell you, this is how we're starting. Some of you are like, oh, I wish I hadn't come today. No, so I'll tell you real quick, right? Today what I want to do is I'm going to tell you a couple of stories to start this thing off, and it actually dates back to my college days, and so you're actually going to get to see some fun pictures that are from the vault. They're on Facebook, so I don't know if it's really a tight vault, but it's on Facebook. And so I'm going to show you a couple of pictures of me in college, and then a couple of stories around this. So to start things off, this is the first one I'm going to show you. This is me wanting to be John Mayer as a worship leader with a group of middle school students, right? Now, this is fun. If you're wondering, like, why is he doing the hee-haw dance? I am too. So it's great. So these are the baggy jeans. Those are shoes, which you can't really tell from the picture. They look like bowling shoes, which is fun. And it's funny. It looks like two shirts. It's one shirt. It's great. So this is me. And when I was in college, what I did is I went to school. And while I was going to school, I actually worked. And while I was working, I worked at a church. I worked about 50 hours a week, and I made $100. Score. So I did this. And these are all middle school students for the most part. And what we would do is I worked in this middle school ministry, right, for 6th through 8th graders. And we would go into this big chapel. We'd put on a service. And we didn't have all the lights. We didn't have all that stuff. What we'd do is we'd put up a massive banner that's about the size of this curtain. And it had all these fun grunge effects on it. And this is what I was doing. So my freshman year of college, that's what I was doing. I was working at this church, and I was going to school full-time and doing all that. Now, a couple things around this that you need to know about me is, number one, dating wasn't happening, and I think we're clear why, right? Partly because I really was that white. I was like clear. I was like Larry Bird. It was an amazing thing. And so like it wasn't happening for me, but about midway through that semester, I'd met a girl. She was amazing. She started volunteering at this middle school ministry that I was a part of. Go ahead and take a deep breath. It was my wife, so just so you felt weird, it was my wife. It was great. So we were there, and we met doing this. She was dating another guy. We don't talk about him anymore, but and so what happened is November 12th, this is so interesting, it was the day before my birthday, right? I actually found this yesterday because I was stalking around on Facebook on her page. I saw this was fun. November 12th, 2007, right, we had already met, but this was actually the night that I asked her out for the first time. And so what she said was, you remember back when Facebook, like, it would said, like, Emily Holden is, and you fill in the blank? Remember those status? Some of you are like, no, I don't, because you're 12. But anyway, yeah, so this is what Facebook used to be. You just fill in the blank. That's what a status update was. And so I put in there, Emily is in the library for the rest of her life. Now, little did she know that she was going to meet all of this, right? Like, she didn't know that like I was going to ask her out this night, but we went to the library. She went to the library to study. I went to the library to pick up girls, and specifically her. And so I showed up at the library, and she was there. She had posted this earlier that day, which I thought was so funny. And that night, right, here's what happened. That night, I at the end of it, we were there until the library closed, which is the only time that ever happened in my entire college career. And I left and I looked at her. I was like, hey, your dorm is about a quarter of a mile away. I was like, hey, why don't I drive you home? Now, Emily's smart because she looked at me and she said, no, I'm not going to do that. She goes, but you can walk me. Now, I hadn't walked a quarter of a mile at that point in college yet. And so I was like, sure, let's do that. And so I walked her back to her dorm. And that lasted for a long time. In fact, it lasted into midnight, which ended up being my birthday, and it was great. And it was that night that I asked her out for the first time, and we started dating, and then we started doing ministry together at this middle school thing. She was on this. She was actually taking the picture. This is us and a group of the students. I was wondering where I was, and I realized this kid right here, he's in 6th grade. He's a drummer, so he's on my shoulders. We're working at this camp with middle school students. We started dating. One of our first dates, we went to go see a concert. Anybody know Dave Barnes? Any Dave Barnes fans? Yes, me and you, yes. We went to Dave Barnes. I wasn't going to talk to her by myself, so her sister came, one of my best friends named Tyler. We started dating, and I like to say, I wish it would have been like a year and then it was all done. It was 8 years, and then it was all done. It was great. So we dated for a long time, and every guy currently is going, I wish I hadn't shown up today. We're almost done with the love story part, I promise. So we showed up to this part, and we dated for a long time. We got engaged. I took her back to the place of our first date. Then we got married, which was awesome. We had a great time. She actually did the wedding stuff, and actually our wedding day, I showed up a little bit late because I went to Chick-fil-A. True story. Don't do that. And so we did that, and then a little while later, about a year and a half later, we had our first baby. His name is Henry. Then we had our second baby recently. Her name is Eleanor, and now we're one big happy family, and all of that happened, and it all started with an invitation, right? It all started with an invitation that she rejected, and then I invited her to something else, and then she said yes, and then we went. But it all started with something that was a point, and all of a sudden everything began to kind of happen from that point, and that point was an invitation. And that invitation to say, hey, can I walk you back to the dorm, completely changed the whole trajectory of my life. And if you're sitting next to your spouse or you're sitting next to somebody you're dating, especially if you're a guy, you feel real weird right now, but all these things, like you're going, it starts from a point and then it just goes forward, right? And then life just moves forward, but it starts, for a lot of us, in some ways, with an invitation. Now that happened there for me. Work was the same sort of thing. You probably will never meet this guy, right? But this guy is named Jamie Williams. Jamie is an amazing, amazing guy, but when I was in 7th grade, I just moved to a new city. Jamie and I played on the same baseball team. Now, what I didn't know about Jamie is that Jamie was a follower of Jesus. Not only was he a follower of Jesus, but he was somebody who was a follower of Jesus and wanted everybody else to be a follower of Jesus. And so we're playing baseball, and I was a pitcher, and that was kind of what I did. I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, but I could throw it. Jamie was like an amazing hitter. Like he hit more. He broke all the records that year. He was incredible. I looked up to him, and he said, hey, I'd love for you to go to church with me. And I said, okay, let's do it. And finally, I did. I was super introverted. All of the students would stand on these steps. I used to make my mom drive around 6, 7, 8 times because I didn't want to get out of the minivan, Dodge Caravan. You know what I'm talking about? That was my first car, too, which contributed to dating, but that's a different thing. So I get out, and finally I got out, and I fell in love with it. Like, they were amazing people, and they embraced me, right? Not only that, there was a guy, and this guy's name was Johnny Hall, right? Johnny Hall was our student pastor at the time. Again, you will probably never meet Johnny. Johnny was the first person that ever looked at me and said, I think you should be on stage. And I was like, I think you're crazy, right? And it was under Johnny that I got the opportunity to speak for the very first time, to speak the second time, and then they invited me to play in their little youth band thing, and I didn't pick the cool instrument. I played bongos. That's what I played. In a rock band, I was the bongo player. Started doing that, and then when I got to college, the person who gave me my first job was a guy named Dustin Lee. Dustin said, hey, what do you feel like you're good at? I told him, and then I started doing it. He's like, no, you're in fact not good at administration. You are terrible at administration. Let me help you with that, right? Dustin gave me my first shot at it. And then from there, a guy named Eddie Jones said, hey, if you're interested in speaking, I'll give you more opportunities to do that. And he did. And then there's a guy named Clark Campbell. Clark Campbell, from a decision that he made, completely changed the trajectory of my life. I told him that I wanted to speak, and he said, are you good? And I said, yes. And I wasn't sure if I was or not, but I was confident to say yes. And he said, for the next year, you get to do all of them. And he gave me a shot, and for the next year, I spoke to high school students, 50 weeks out of that year, and he gave me a shot to do it, fell in love with it. I was like, that's what I want to do with my life. And then after that, when I got to college, I went to a conference, and the conference was a guy named Andy Stanley. His name was, he was speaking. I'll never forget, I'm like in my early 20s, and he started speaking, and I started thinking, everything that you're saying is what's in my heart. Because I grew up in churches that never really thought about people who were far away from God. And he said, if God's called you to do that, you need to do that. You don't need to be apologetic about it. And you need to be passionate about it. And don't be afraid of big things. Go after as many people as possible. And I'm looking at around, and a couple of my friends felt uncomfortable. I was like, well, y'all got to do something else. I'm going to do that. That's what I want to do. And I saw it for the first time. And when I saw it for the first time, I was like, okay, it is possible to invite people to church, and not only invite people to church, but invite people to church and them actually enjoy it, even if they don't believe everything that you believe. And from that, it took me on to the rest of what I would do with my life. But it all started, and don't miss this, with an invitation from my friend Jamie, who was on my baseball team. Now, here's why this matters so much, and this is what we're going to spend some time talking about today. Right? Most of the significant things in our lives, most of the significant moments in our life, you can almost trace back to an invitation where somebody called something out on you to do something more or to do something bigger. That most of us know what it's like to experience an invitation that changes the trajectory of our lives. For most of us guys in the room, it was the moment that you decided that you were going to get over yourself and actually ask her out. And all of a sudden, simply by going up and starting a conversation, your world changed, right? For many of us in business, that's exactly how it happened. For many of you, you started companies, and it started with a big decision and an invitation that somebody said, hey, you could do more, you could do it differently. Have you ever thought about it? And you go, I've never thought about that. And then all of a sudden, you decided to do it, and the ball started rolling, and your life began to change. Now, that's how my life changed, right? When we start thinking about church, from those talks, from all of those things that started with Jamie, there was actually a verse that I heard Andy talk about at that conference that completely changed me. And this is in my office right now. This is on my wall. The verse is out of Acts 15. I actually want to read it to you, so we'll put it on the screen. It says this. It says, it is my judgment, therefore, that we should not, and can we read this together, that we should not make it, let's say it one more time, that we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to God. That we shouldn't make it difficult for people who are far away from God. So what would it look like if we created spaces where it wasn't difficult for people who were searching or curious about faith but were disconnected? What would happen if they could come? And the church didn't make it difficult for them. There weren't all these hurdles. And all of a sudden they could find themselves at a place where they could explore their faith and explore what Jesus had done for them. Now, many of you in the room, right? Many of you in the room, you know what this is like. Many of you at one point were unchurched and understand the power of an invitation because somebody invited you. If there was a person who went out of their way and they stepped out and, they were a friend or they were a colleague and they asked you and you said no, and then they asked you again, you said no, and about 20 other times they finally asked you and you finally ran out of excuses and they promised you lunch. And you're like, well, if you'll feed me, I'll do just about anything. And so you showed up and you came and you started a journey. Like it was from that invitation that your world changed. But a lot of us in the room, you're like me. I actually grew up in church, right? Because there are many of us who grew up in churches and never knew what it was like to be unchurched, right? Now, you may have been disconnected from God. You may have been far away from God. But you've just been a person that for the most part of your life, you've been in a church. And what's so interesting, and I love having conversations with people from this camp see our church and view it in a very different light than people in this camp, including me. Like, it is hard for me sometimes to come in and not think about it from my own lens and my own perspective. And not only that, but not just think about it from my own lens and perspective, but to think about what is it that you could do for me? What songs do I like? What stuff do I, and I just think about it from my perspective. But a lot of people who are unchurched who came back, and you hear their stories, I love this. When they come back and they start inviting other people, the entire time they're on the edge of their seat in a church service because they've been in a church service that did not go well for people who were far from God, Like, I remember being a middle school pastor, and I would lead worship, and I'll never forget the moment that we were singing a song called Fire Fall Down, which is a fun song. If you're a follower of Jesus, you've read through the Bible, parts of that make sense. We're singing this song called Fire Fall Down, and there's this kid in the back who's at church for the first time, and he literally does this. He looks up and kind of starts stepping back. I don't know if he thought fireworks were going to go off. But I was like, yeah, we didn't think about that. I love getting text messages on Sunday, and I get these all the time. I'll get these from people that are like, I invited somebody today. Please don't suck today. Don't say that. I got that recently. I got that this morning. I invited somebody. They come. I need you to be on your A game. And I'm like, I'm going to do my best. You know what I mean? And I love it. Because if you've ever sat through one of our services with somebody who's not a church person, and don't miss this, you see it so much differently. Because for those of us who are church people, don't miss this, for those of us who go to church consistently, and you always have, it's easy to see it through our own lens. In fact, we can say it this way: the gravitational pull of churches is for them to be primarily focused on what meets church people's needs. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. There's a lot of churches that do that. I grew up in churches that did that. That's just not us. Like, we don't wake up every single morning. This is hard to say out loud. In fact, I do run-throughs in the morning, and I do it with a group of really, really smart people. And as soon as I told them this statement, they're all like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, wait till I get to the Bible part, and I'll prove it. I promise." But everybody's like, it feels uncomfortable, because if you're a church person, you're like, but what about me? And the gravitational pull is almost always towards the, are you satisfying my needs as a church person? The problem with that, right, is that Jesus, right, Jesus seems to be focused on people who are disconnected to God. And I'll sit with some of my pastor friends, we'll talk about this, and I'll hear stories or whatever. And this sounds so bad. I probably shouldn't say it, but I'll say it anyway. 11 o'clock, we won't tell anybody, right? We just say this here. But every once in a while, I'll get a question about it. And they're like, what do you tell people who are really upset that you're not doing it their way? I say, I tell them to go to your church. And I don't mean to be a jerk about it. I don't. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way. Here's why I say that. Because there are places that are so focused on the entire, we believe that you grow the most here when you are connected with people who are outside of the faith. And they're all like, thanks. I'm like, sure, yeah, it's great. And here's why it matters. Because we believe so much that the local church should be focused on people who are not in these seats yet. We believe that if you attend Kensington and if you're a part of this place, that there's just this inner part of you that is connected to something so much bigger and other people who aren't followers of Jesus yet. And it's rooted in what Jesus actually says, right? Now, these are the words out of Luke. Luke was a doctor, and he gave so many great details, especially around what Jesus says. And here's what he says. He tells this narrative. He says, now the tax collectors and sinners, right? So these are the people that would be outsiders to the faith. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. And I love this so much. That means this, that Jesus was teaching, and there are a group of tax collectors and sinners, right? People who are outside of the faith, distance from the whole thing. And don't miss it. They showed up and flocked to Jesus as he taught about God. And they're the outsiders. They show up, and they don't miss this, they liked Jesus. You follow Jesus through the New Testament, it's like over and over and over and over and over again. What you find is these people who are outside the faith, like leaning into Jesus. He didn't repel people like that. He attracted them, even though the things that he taught disrupted all of the norms. And then Luke goes on and he says this, they're gathered around to hear Jesus, but the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered. Now the Pharisees and teachers of the law would have been the rule keepers, the religious people, and people had it all together. Now I want you to picture this. Again, this is a little bit in my head because sometimes Jesus is sarcastic in my head, which I think is fun. A little like Jim Halpert from The Office. Like, he's teaching, there's all of these people who are outsiders and sinners kind of listening around, and all the Pharisees and teachers of the law, they're all out here, and they're muttering. And I love this. I talked about this a few months ago, but the muttering is the thing that's so interesting to me. Because you ever hear somebody like talk under their breath when you walk into a room and you just feel the angst of it? And then even more than that, ladies, and I don't understand how women work. I will be the first, but I think it's always interesting when like a woman walks in the room and another woman looks at her and she gives them like one of these. She doesn't say a word, but you know what she said. You know what I mean? It's almost like this slight muttering, and she even look at you like, well, you just look great. That all works, you know, whatever that is. And you're like, what she's really saying is, you ugly as sin. Like, you know, something like that. And you don't even know why. Like, what is that? And she's like muttering, and you feel the angst and the problem and the issues, and you're like, ugh, you know? All of these religious leaders, keepers of the law, people who had it all together, they're muttering about Jesus. And here's their problem with him. This man welcomes sinners, and he eats with them. They are muttering about the fact that people who are far away from God lean towards Jesus. Of all the things they could be frustrated about, that's the thing. And their problem was that Jesus connected relationally with those people who were far away from God. Now, this is where the Jim Halpert part comes in, which I love. I feel like Jesus probably knew that they were muttering. And he goes, I could call them out, I could be authoritative, I could do whatever. But what Jesus does, he goes, no. I'm just going to do what I do best. I'm going to tell them a story, and we'll shut them all up that way. And so what he does, he tells a story with a point. He tells this parable, and he tells a parable in a way where, don't miss this, all the other religious leaders, they kind of get this weird angst, and like, you can almost feel the tension as he says it. So it says this, then Jesus told them this parable. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one. Now, I love this, right? Because none of you are shepherds. I don't think, most of us aren't shepherds. I'm not a shepherd. I don't have sheep, right? The idea of losing a sheep and then having maybe 99, which is what he's going to talk about, 99 other sheep, there's a part of us, almost all of us, that would almost ask the question, how do I make sure that I keep the 99? Because if I lose one, that's one thing. But the 99, I got to make sure that I have the 99. And he flips it on its head. He says, suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? I feel like all the muttering religious leaders are all floating around a little bit, you know. Jesus says that. I feel like he's like looking at all the sinners. Not that this section's the sinners, but they are. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. He's like looking at them, and then he drops this, and he just kind of, I feel like he like looks back. None of that's in the Bible. It just feels right. He kind of looks back, and they stop muttering, you know. You ever seen that? Somebody just shuts it down because everybody feels convicted. The other day, we were working in here, and I have a 4-month-old and a 2.5-year-old. The 2.5-year-old, his name is Henry, he's much faster than me, and I think he might actually be a lot smarter than me. And so we're here. I've got the stroller with our baby girl in it. Her name is Eleanor. And we're in here, and have you ever had that moment where, like, I saw him just a second ago, you know? And we're in here. Now, the great thing about this room is there's not a lot of electricity running through it, and there's not really any lights. So it's, what could a 2.5-year-old get in trouble with? That's facetious, but he did. And I'm with my 4-month-old, and he's gone. I don't know where he is. And there's like a catwalk, and there's stairs everywhere. You know what I did? I had that moment, and it was like a 30-second kind of moment where I just took off running. And I love my little girl. Like, I'm about as dad person as you could be with my, like, protective, all that. But, like, when I can't find the one, even though I got 2 kids, I'm going after the one. And I took off running. And she's, like, all strapped down in every possible strap down. I mean, she's not going in. But I just took off running. And I run up here, and there's stairs, and he's at the top of the stairs. And I ran up there. And a lot of you as parents know this. I was so angry. And I wasn't even angry at him, but I was convincing myself that I was angry at him. I was angry at me. And I get there, and the first response that I have, he looks at me, and he goes, Daddy! And he's excited. I'm like, you know, like, as soon as I got to him, though, his arms are up. And I just grabbed him and gave him a hug, and he's all excited. He thinks it's a game. And I thought his mom was going to kill me, you know, like, I'm going to die today. But in that moment, even though it was 30 seconds, I was running to find the one. I was running. If you have kids, you know that. Some of you lost a kid at Target or Walmart, and you're like, if those little carts went faster, I'd be on one of those. You know, like, you're ready to go. Like, you're going to do whatever it takes. It's like an unending pursuit. And the Bible describes God as our Father. And Jesus even would tell these parables about how it was like a father and son, and when the son comes back, the father runs after the son, as if it's like this unending pursuit, that there's nothing that you could do to keep me from my son. So for those of us who are followers of Jesus in the room, come on, look at me for a second. I think God loves you more than you'll ever know. And God pursued you in ways that, you know, many of us are like, that we could never even fully fathom. But he is pursuing those who are far away from him, and he invites us into that. In the same way that I love Eleanor with all of my heart and do anything for Eleanor, when Henry went running, I went running after Henry. And I think God does that until every one. That if one of the sheep goes missing, there's 99 others, but he's going after the one. We've been asking this question, what if the church wasn't confined to a piece of land? What if it wasn't a building? What if it wasn't about lights? And what if it wasn't just about music? But when that grips your heart, understand that it's not just about a building, even though this is a great tool to use to invite people to. That it's not just about having all the answers, because, you know, Christianity is messy, and having those conversations are messy with people. But it's about God igniting a vision that is beyond you for people. And for those of us who are followers of Jesus, we go, I'm going to follow your heart into where you lead me, and that is after people who are far away from God. I'll say it this way, ready? And this is for those of you specifically who are followers of Jesus. If eternity is real, right? If you believe that, at the end of your life, what's going to matter most is what you did with that truth. Like, and this is like a gut check kind of moment. Like, if you believe in Jesus and he died on the cross and they rose from the grave and, you know, he did that for you and reconciling with God, and then he wants to do that for other people, or they did that for other people, then he invites you to help tell that story. No, don't miss this. You can do all sorts of things. You can make all the money in the world. You can do all kinds of great things. At the end of your life, what's going to matter is what that looks like with other people. I love how Jesus wraps this up, this parable. All the muttering religious people, the sinners. And Jesus responds, he says, and when he finds it, being the one, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. It's like when you pick up your kid and you throw him over your shoulder, you know what I'm talking about? And you realize you're a little heavier than I thought, you know? And it's just joy. And it's a celebration. And then it doesn't stop there. The celebration goes on because then he calls his friends and his neighbors together and says, rejoice with me. I have found my lost sheep. There's this communal celebration of someone who comes back to the Father. See, and I love talking about this. This place isn't marked by a group of people on staff, and it's not marked by a group of people who are like the core people who do all the work. It's not that. This place is marked by a group of people who are united on a mission that there are people who are far from God, and we're going to do anything short of sin to go after them. They're going to do whatever that takes. That if tomorrow we said the best way to reach people has nothing to do with this building, I'd be like, sell the building, figure out how to do it different. That if that meant that I didn't get up on stage and speak every week, take the mic. I'd probably just be speaking in a coffee shop with 12 people anyway. Like, I'm telling you, like, we want to do whatever it takes to reach people, and we want you involved in that if you call this place home. Like, what does it mean for us to go into our community and not be comfortable that there are people disconnected from God, but to see everybody as somebody that God loves and that Jesus died for? What would that look like for us? And Jesus gives the full picture of this. He said, I tell you, in the same way, there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents. Now, I've read this verse 1,000 times. This morning in run-through was the part where I feel like I read it in a different lens, and I read it in a way it stung me as a person who grew up in church as a follower of Jesus. But can we read this together? And I want to emphasize what Jesus emphasizes. Because he doesn't say equal to, and he doesn't say there is less than. He says there is more rejoicing over the one turning back to God. So I want to read this, right? So he says this, I tell you, in the same way, let's say this together, there will be, and all the church people like me, that should sting a little bit. There will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent. And that has nothing to do with how much God loves you. But that has everything to do with the Father's heart. He was running after the one. Statement that I want to do to deeply connect with that's unsettling is that the heart of God is for the one whose heart is searching. The heart of God bends towards those who are far away from him. We say it this way, that all of us in this room, if you're a follower of Jesus, if you're somebody who said, I'm all in, if you call this place home, that we are invited into a mission that is so much bigger than ourselves. Which means that when we begin to see things through that lens, I don't miss it, when we see things through the lens of people who are outsiders, that means our services feel different. That means that our preferences feel different. That means the thing that we do feel different. That means that what we find ourselves preoccupied feels different. I love saying this, and I said this in a different way earlier, but when you come and you sit through one of our services with somebody who's not a follower of Jesus, you feel it differently and you see it differently. Your expectations shift and it changes and it feels different. It's not just about you. It's about for the one whose heart is searching. And in our community, I know we say this number a lot. We've been saying it for 3 years. There are 52,722 people that don't believe in a different religion. It's not those people. It's not people who are different denominations. It's certainly not those people. These are people that are identified as having no version of that. These are the nuns. These are people who would say, like, I'm not affiliated with faith at all. And I'm like, again, if you believe in eternity, this is the number that should make you feel unsettled. And the beautiful part about the gospel is that when you come to faith, Jesus invites you into a mission that is so much bigger than you, that will outlive you, and is the most important thing you will ever do with your life. All of a sudden, our neighborhoods are different because they become our mission field. Our workplaces are different because they become our mission field. Our schools are different. Our restaurants are different. You walk into Outback and Blue Tractor with a different framework. Why? Because you are the church. It's not about walls, and it's not about buildings, and it's not about land. It's about people. It's about you can lead somebody to faith over a dinner table conversation. That you can invite them into this place, and you can experience something here with them, and then have a conversation elsewhere. You don't need the pastor guy to lead it all through it. In fact, this is always interesting, and I love, some of you say this as an affection, and I appreciate that. It means a lot. But our staff doesn't call me pastor. And here's why. It's not because I'm not a pastor. Like, it's that all of us are pastors. All of us are involved with people. I think the most pastoral people that we have are volunteers who are in a middle school small group. You sit in a middle school small group, you're like, they're all sinners, right? You're like, I'm just kidding. I love middle school students. But you're like, it feels different. And there's something inside of you that goes, you, in that moment, are a pastor. You are the person reaching out. You are the people who are the church in every place that you walk into. And so here's what I hope happens. And again, with this series in particular, this is what I've been praying so much. I'll sneak in here on Saturdays, and sometimes we'll pray over these seats. And sometimes I'll think about, a lot of you sit in the same spot, which is fine. So I think about that, And what I hope happens for you is that you begin to discover a purpose that is so much bigger than the way that many of us live kind of day in and day out, including me. It's easy to forget this, especially as a church person. Some of you are an unchurched person. Now you're a church person. It's hard to see, but that we would see our lives and our purpose differently. Because God may not have uniquely called you to be a musician or a person who speaks on stage, but God has uniquely called you. And that God has uniquely gifted you. And he's uniquely gifted you not just so that you can get more of the stuff that are focused on you. He's uniquely gifted you to make an impact wherever you are. And so the question to kind of get us started in this that I want you to really think about is this. What breaks your heart? What people group, what injustice, what thing in our city breaks your heart? What, if you allowed it to fully kind of play out in your mind, would actually keep you up at night staring at the fan? What breaks your heart? And some of you already know this. I don't miss it. Some of you already have an answer for this, and you've just not acted on it yet. And then some of you, if you're really honest, you've never asked this question. It's not that you're apathetic. You just haven't discovered what it is that causes you this, I need to do something about this in the world. But when you discover what genuinely breaks your heart, and then you ask yourself the question, where am I gifted? And all of a sudden, your life becomes a response as a solution to whatever that problem in the world is. And then you ask yourself the question, who has God placed in front of you? Who are the people in your sphere of influence that God has already placed there that matches with what breaks your heart and the way that he's gifted you? And you ready? Here's my hunch. And I could be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong, but I think here's my hunch. The vast majority of us in the room, it's not that we're apathetic and it's not that we're lazy. But the vast majority of us, it's fear. It's that you have an answer to what breaks your heart, but there's 1,000 reasons why you couldn't do that or you couldn't do that right now. You have 1,000 reasons why you couldn't take a step towards that. And you just boxed it up and you put it aside and you have a clear picture of that and you vaguely know how you're gifted. You've just never taken a step. Because that step, and don't mess with me, you would actually have to fully get involved and invest and engage in something I don't know that I have time, or I've got kids, or, I'm an empty nester and I'm finally free. Am I right? Nope. Okay. So you got that, How do I do this? But when you come into grips with what breaks your heart, how you're gifted, and who God has placed in front of you, then all of a sudden, you begin to discover what your greater purpose is. You will never probably meet Jamie Williams, but as a 7th grader, he knew this. And he showed up to a baseball field. You get this, a baseball field. His family showed up to a baseball field, knowing that it wasn't just a game, that it was about people who were far away from God. Now, I have one more question that I want to put up. And this last question is one that I hope, this is my prayer, it feels like a rock in your shoe when you're walking. You ever had one of these? And you can't quite get it out, but it's just there, and you're really angry the whole time. And until you do something about it, it's just always there. You know what I'm talking about? I don't know what this is happening behind my head, but it just feels like that's what it is, you know? I hope this is like a rock in your shoe kind of question. And the question is this: who will one day tell a story about an invitation that you gave? Who? Who will one day tell a story that starts with you giving an invitation that set their lives on a different trajectory? Who will one day point and say, I started this business, and I started this business in part because I was sitting around, I was having a conversation with this person, and they called out the best in me that I hadn't even fully realized yet? What person who's far away from God will tell a story about one day they were with you and they had a conversation? You were bold enough to say, will you come with me? Can we talk about this? What marriage will be completely and drastically changed because of an invitation that you gave somebody to take a step into a different and bigger story than they were thinking about themselves? You make all the money, be as successful as you could possibly be, do all the great things. But at the end of your life, the people who are lining up to thank you, that will be your legacy. And the question is, come on, you get to lean into that now. You get to decide today that you're going to build a legacy that's going to live beyond you, and that you will give invitation after invitation after invitation, that you will figure out what breaks your heart, and that you will lean into it. You will be bold enough to discover your giftings, and you will look at the people around you, and you will lean in to that. And here's my hope. This is my hope. There will be a day where you get to experience the extraordinary beauty of you going, I simply followed in obedience to what God had called me to do. And look what he did. Because when you begin to do that, all of a sudden, your legacy and your mind and everything begins to shift. So what I wanted to do to wrap up this talk, and kind of the culmination of what we've been talking about the last 3 weeks. But I think for us, there are so many of us in the room who have yet to take that step. And so here we use language like move out. Some of you have heard us say, like, we want you to move out beyond these walls. We want you to take a step beyond these walls and move beyond just, this place and do something. And so we really want to come alongside of you and do that. And so for the first time, to my knowledge, we've been doing stuff like this, but we've never systematized what it looks like. But we want you to be a part of that. And so we have this short video that kind of paints a picture, not only of people that are already doing this, but what it looks like to join other people who are doing it with you. Let's watch this together.
So years ago, when we started Kensington, my biggest fear is that people wouldn't respond. Like, people wouldn't respond to Christ, people wouldn't move out. My biggest surprise in all these years is the unbelievable faith that's been expressed through people in this movement. Over and over again, I've been blown away by people stepping out to follow Christ into risk and adventure. Sometimes we see it around the world, but maybe most often we see it in simple acts of kindness, of people moving into their neighborhoods, into their workplaces, into their communities. And we call this Move Out.
So I'm excited to tell you a little bit about Kensington's new Move Out strategy. And I kind of want to frame it with this question. What would it look like if the church wasn't contained to a piece of land? What would it look like if each one of us saw ourselves as the church? How could that impact our communities, our neighborhoods, our workplaces, our schools? And I'm so excited about this because I really believe that together as a church, as we move out, that is going to transform our communities and really entire regions.
Coming out of college, I was very career driven. I saw my life just working, climbing the corporate ladder. One day, very early on, I was sitting in my cube and I just heard God asking me, where's my identity placed? Is it in my career or is it in Him? And I remember that day just choosing and saying, Christ, I choose you, I want to pursue you. What happened is that I started a weekly prayer chain through emails, and what we did is we asked coworkers if they would like to receive weekly prayers, weekly devotionals via email every Wednesday morning. It has blossomed into a whole weekly devotional with its own site, and we have big dreams for it. The way I view work is not just tasks. Work is about people, and they're the purpose and they're the point of it.
We do two really basic things. We do homework help, tutoring with some of our school partners' kids, because sometimes their parents can't help them because they don't speak English, they don't read English. So we'll sit there and we'll help them with whatever they need. Then after these school partners' kids go off to their Kaleo classes, singing and dancing, then we do English classes with their moms. If things drift where someone starts being vulnerable and honest, then we can say, okay, English can wait because it will come. But what's going on right now is more important.
We're Lauren and Anthony Guastella, and we're On Your Feet Detroit.
Our goal is to help warm people experiencing homelessness in Detroit this winter by handing out warming bundles. Warming bundles are backpacks filled with gloves, hats, socks, hand warmers, and thermal blankets, trying to help our brothers and sisters out on the street to stay warm this winter. My whole life I've known who God's called me to help, and it's those experiencing homelessness. And we're out here on a Monday morning because we know that they are God's people and that they need to feel loved and they need to feel special, and that's our goal.
So what are some next steps to moving out? We want you to check out the webpage that we have. It's kensingtonchurch.org/moveout. We want to mobilize hundreds, if not thousands, of move-out teams and leaders. As a community, we really want to encourage each other to ask questions like, who is my neighbor? Who has God placed in my life to love? What has God placed in my hand in terms of like skills and experiences that can help me move out? And then what are my life experiences, even the pain that I've gone through, that can really be a platform for me to bless other people?
It's just a beautiful thing when you look at work through the lenses of Christ.
Really, our heart is that some of these families we're working with now are so transformed and so in love with Jesus that it's their heart to take what they've learned and the things that the Lord has to offer and go into the community and allow us to be a part of that.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for Dion, and just thank you so much for the warm spirit that he has, God, and I pray that you keep him warm during these months and that you help him just to keep his head up, God, and know that he is loved by you and he is loved by his community. And I just pray, God, that you shower him with blessings, that you keep him warm and protect him on the streets, God. In Jesus' name, amen.
As I ask you to consider again a year-end Christmas gift to Kensington, our dream is that this movement would be uncontainable. Like there'd be so many movements of God flowing out of us that we wouldn't be able to categorize them or to control them, but it would be Jesus Christ flooding the world with his Holy Spirit, moving through people like you. Your giving fuels the movement of God in the world. And so as we move out in this next year, you realize that every dollar we invest is a vision of moving out to see the world touched with the love of Jesus Christ.
So when I saw that video earlier today, I love it because I have pretty close relationships with both of those people that you heard from it. So Jocelyn, who you heard from in the video, is doing that with schools. And then also Fadi, who you saw in the video as well. It's so funny specifically with him because I I discovered his website and his devotionals kind of randomly on my own, and I didn't even at the beginning know who it was or that he was connected to Kensington, and I found this out, and I heard this story about how his heart was just broken over people at his workplace who needed something like that, and he started it, and now it's kind of blown up, and he and his wife Jillian are doing extraordinary things through it. And I think for us to think about today, what is that for you, right? There are things that you can do, and you're busy, and you've got a lot going on, and I know you do, but what is it that God has broken your heart over, and what does it look like for you to lean in and not take all the steps, but take a step towards it? What does it look like for you to say, hey, in this next year, I'm really going to commit to taking steps towards that and to being a part of something where I move out beyond the walls of the church, and I get engaged with people who are disconnected from God in our community. And so I'll tell you what our kind of big goal is, and this is what I'm hoping for us. And this is what we're really praying that you'll jump in and be involved in. We're praying that at our campus alone that we'll have 500 individuals at our campus alone who decide to take a next step towards some type of initiative in our community and to reaching out to it. And so there's a couple of ways that you can do that. Number one, we actually just created a website around this so that you can get connected and find other people who are doing this with you. And so you can go to kensingtonchurch.org/moveout. Pretty simple. kensingtonchurch.org/moveout. If you're a person who's like, I want to discover what my gifting is, you can really begin that process there. If you're a person like, I want to figure out other people who are doing like-minded things, you can find that there, even at our campus, and you can figure out what your next step in that would be. But I think my encouragement to you is to take that next step. And then the other side of this that I would say to you, and we've been talking about this throughout the entire month, but when you give here, right, and we talk about year-end giving, when you give here, you're not just funding, and I want it to be so clear, you're not just funding a service, right? You are funding a movement in our city and cities all over the country and then all throughout the world to be a part of something. And so I would say this to some of you. When you give, I want you to think about what does it look like to give even more and even sacrificially to be a part of all of these movements that are going to start and all of these initiatives are going to start all over our city, through the people in this room, the people that came last hour, through our students or our kids. What does it look like to even fund that and to begin to dream about what that could look like? Can you imagine, just for a second, if you would, and I know it's a lot, but imagine what would happen if 500 people in our city were released and mobilized to do something extraordinary in faith that stretched them out beyond kind of where they were. That would make a significant impact here in our city, and I think we have an opportunity to do that. So here's what I want to do. I want to wrap up our time. We're going to pray together, and we're going to sing a song. And so if you would, I'd love for you to go ahead and stand. I want to pray over us, and we'll sing this together. But I want to tell you about this song before we sing it, because it's one of my favorites, in part because when it came out, there was all this theological controversy on it, and I'm a dork, and I love that, which is fun. Secondly, around it, the controversy was on the words. It's called Reckless Love, and it talks about the reckless love of God, right? And the controversy was, can God ever be reckless? And I was like, well, he's God. I think he can do just about anything. But secondly, I think for me, I was like, it really communicates the perspective, I think, of the person looking at what God is doing and almost going like, that doesn't all make sense. Like the pursuit that you have, I don't have like full context for it. I don't understand all that. The pursuit, like this unending father-like pursuit over people who are far away from him, and that pursuit that he has for you, like that feels kind of out there. And so as we sing this song, we say this every once in a while, but I think my encouragement to you is, for those of you who are good singers, real quick, where are all my good singers at? You're really talented. Like, you know you're talented. You're the person who sings at karaoke, about 6 of us, that's great. And then all the rest of us who are terrible singers, where are you real quick? Awful, really bad, that's great. We're going to be louder. That's fun. I would love for you to sing out. I want you to sing this out with all your heart, and because I believe that there's something about us singing this as a prayer that can really kind of do something to our heart that I think needs to be done. So let me pray for us. We're going to sing this song together, and we'll go from there. Father, we thank you for these truths, and we thank you for what you called us to. You've called us into risk-taking. You've called us into adventure. You've called us into taking steps out that we don't fully understand. You've called us to faith. And you've called us to reaching out to our city. And so I just pray that you would do that, God, that you would not just inspire us today to take a step, but in that step that you would meet us and that you would change and shift our hearts. God, I pray for the person who has never even thought about or acknowledged what breaks their heart. And I pray that you would show them that and that you would help them to find what that thing in them is. God, I pray for the person who knows and has just not taken a step because of fear. God, I pray that the urgency and I pray that the mission that you've called us on would just overwhelm that fear, and that they wouldn't take 10 steps or 20 steps, but they would take a step, and in every single step that you would meet them there. Father, I pray that over this next year, over the course of the next 10 years, 50 years, God, that we would be a group of people who say that we stepped out in faith and we trusted you and we were obedient, and that you did something extraordinary through us that we could have never imagined on our own. God, we pray that these seats would be filled with people, not with just other people from other churches or not just from Christians, but they would be filled with people who are turning back to you, and we'd create a place where it's easy for them to turn back to you as possible. God, I pray that you would help us to walk into every room that we're a part of and acknowledge that there were probably people there who were distant from you, and that you would use us to do something about that. God, I pray that you would do something extraordinary in our midst, and that we would look back over the course of our lives, and there would be people who line up to thank us for the invitations that we gave and for our obedience to you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind. Your foe, still your love for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. Yes, you have been so, so kind to me. Shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Sing it out. There's no shadow you won't light
All right, so we say this a lot, but I would say for a lot of you in the room, I would love for you to have a conversation over lunch with somebody about this, with your spouse, with your family members, whoever it is. If you need to call, like have a conversation about what it is that you need to do, what breaks your heart. I think if everybody had a conversation about that this week and one step they could take, we could all make progress on that. The other thing I want to let you know about too is if it's your first time, we'd love to connect with you and talk to you a little bit more about our church. So you can go right in the lobby. There's an area called the Hub. It's right in the middle of the lobby. We'd love to connect with you and talk with you out there. Or if you're in a rush or if you have kids, like I can't do that today, you can always go to thehubtc.com and one of our staff members will reach out to you from there. And one last thing, Christmas is a week away. Okay, great. So we're excited. A week away. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. If you would, on your seats, there's a little thing like this. I'd love for you to go ahead and grab that if you would. Everybody just kind of grab that real fast. It's on your seat. Pull this out. Hold it up just like this. I'm going to tell you this. This is not for you. This is not for you. This is for you to give away. So this is an invite card for somebody. What we're going to ask everybody to do, if you would, is we'd love for you to give this to somebody. Maybe there's a waiter or a waitress. Maybe it's a conversation you have at work. We'd love for you to give these out. And not only that, some of you, I hope you're a little bit frustrated that we only gave you one, right? So for those people in the room, we would really love to challenge everybody, if you would, over the course of the next week, invite 5 or 6 people with you to come to our Christmas Eve service. We'd love for you to be a part of that. You can do this with this invite. You can get more of them on your way out. You can grab those, but make sure to invite some people with you next week and bring somebody back for our Christmas services. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you right back here next Sunday for Christmas. See you soon. And thank you so much for watching online. We're so glad that you decided to join us today, and we hope that you had a great online. I want to let you know that if you're here in Northern Michigan, we would love to see you at one of our services. It's great to watch online, but it's even better experience here in the room. And so if you're in traveling distance, we'd love for you and your family to come. It's going to be an amazing experience that you're not going to want to miss. Again, we have services at 9 or 11 on Sunday next week, or on Monday at 4 p.m. or 11 p.m. So we would love for you to be a part of those services. And as we talked about with everybody in the room, we know that they can invite with some of these cards, but for you, one of the easiest ways that you can invite is actually to go, and you can see our promo video right there on Facebook, but there's also like an event, which you can look at the event. You can share that event on your Facebook page, or even better yet, you can actually tag people in the comments section and invite them to come with you. So we would love for you to do that. Even if you're watching online, you can actually share the experience online with other people and invite them that way. So we would love for you to do that. Again, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you right back here next week.